Namaskar. Welcome to this series of Bhagavad Gita in daily life. Today we shall be looking at the moral values for character building based in Bhagavad Gita. Moral values, also called as Sadgun Sampatti, is important for change management in our life. It is an important aspect of life. As we grow, we need to imbibe better and better moral values. As a children also, parents do the same thing for the child. They try to imbibe good values or moral values in them. But even in adulthood, we need to continue this process of imbibing better and better values because the change management continues in the life. And this change management needs some small goals so that we can take one step at a time to improve. And slowly and steadily, we have to keep pushing our limits, to keep changing our attitudes, our learning. And all the change happens very slowly. In the 6th Adhyaya, Bhagavan says, Shanai Shanai Uparamed. We have to come out of these, Asuri Sampatti, but that all these happens very slowly, gradually. And we need to keep pursuing our goals with a very positive attitude. We have to keep trying our best. We'll keep failing. It's like a snake and the ladder game, because we try our best, we go up the ladder, and then suddenly in a moment, the snake gulps us down and comes back, we go down, because we are not able to control ourselves. And that's why we need to keep doing it, even if it creates pain, miseries in the early period. And it's not easy to change our old habits, but definitely the good news is that it is possible. That's why we should keep pursuing. We should need to do repeated practice, abhyasa, to make changes in our life, to make it possible. So essentially, Bhagavad Gita helps us to make this change management in our life, and it shows us this goalpost or the lamppost, doing what is the right thing to do, not just what is the easy thing to do. Generally, we try to do something that is easily doable, easily possible, rather than making more efforts and doing something that is right, because that is more difficult to adopt and to continue doing. So Bhagavad Gita shows us a lot of moral values which are called Daivi Sampatti. In several adhyayas, in 2nd Adhyaya, Bhagavan shows us the final 18 shlokas, the Sthita Prajna, the attributes of the wise person who is firmly rooted in wisdom. How does he walk? How does he talk? What are his attributes? What are his characteristics? How can we recognize that this person is a Gnani, is in wisdom? 12th Adhyaya, Bhagavan talks about the Bhakti Yoga, the wise devotee, Gnani Bhakta. What are the virtues of the wise devotee? In the 13th Adhyaya, Bhagavan talks about the aspirant, the sadhak, the jignasu, who wants to understand this Nirgun Tattva. What are his attributes? What are his values? In the 14th Adhyaya, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, Bhagavan describes the Gunatita Lakshana, how the person who transcends these three gunas, what are his characteristics, what is that wise person, what are his virtues. And in 16th Adhyaya, the entire Adhyaya belongs to Daivi Asuri Sampatti Vibhaga Yoga, here where the virtues and the vices are described in details. So in this short presentation, we will talk about some of the values shown in the 12th Adhyaya, Gnani Bhakta, the 13th Adhyaya, the Nirgun Tattva, the aspirant or the sadhaka, and the 16th Adhyaya, the Daivi Asuri Sampatti Vibhaga Yoga. In the 9th Adhyaya, Bhagavan says that the Daivi Sampatti, Bhakti and Gnana, these are the three things that are important. First, we have to adopt the Daivi Sampatti. O Arjuna, great men are those who surrender to this Daivi Sampatti, to these good values, who try to imbibe this Daivim Prakrutim Ashritaha. And then Bhajanti Mam Ananya Manasa, who worship me with single pointed devotion, and then finally understand, know me as the eternal being, the source of all the beings, and that is the knowledge. So all these three things are important for us on this path. In the 12th Adhyaya, the Gnani Bhakta Lakshana, virtues of the wise devotee, are described. And when Bhagavan starts with Adveshta Sarva Bhutana, one should not have any dislike or hatred towards any being, not just human beings, but any species. We should not have any dislike or hatred. And this is very sukshma. We need to, even if a mosquito comes and sits on us, we should not try to kill that. We should not have a dislike or hatred towards all the other species also, not just to our own species, to our own people, the human beings. because we tend to have our own likes, dislikes very strongly, and that's why we create instant dislikes, try to label people, and that's what we should avoid. Maitra, should befriend everyone, should not have enemies. That is the Devi Sampati, being friend to one and all, helping, being compassionate, Karuna, understanding the pain, the miseries of others, trying to help others. Nirmama, remaining unattached in all our actions, in all our, in all our relationships with all our people, we should remain unattached. So unattachment does not mean that we don't love people. We should love them, but we should remain free from attachment. And nirahankara, having no pride for our own limited self. Samadukha sukha, remaining equipoised in pain and pleasure. And kshami means being forgiving, trying to forgive people, because as others have, we also have our own shortcomings. By this understanding, we need to forgive others, even to those who cause us pain. And Bhagavan says that this type of my devotee is very dear to me. Satatam santushtaha, one who is always satisfied, does not want more and more and more and more. Greedy is not greedy for possessions, but somebody who is satisfied is dear to the Lord. Satatam yogi, one who is constantly connected to the supreme divinity. Yoga, with yoga we are connected to that divine power. Yatatma, one who keeps trying his best and having a self-control, that person is dear to the Lord. Dradhanishchaya, one who has a very firm sense of resolution, firm sense of determination, where for doing something is good things, is Anmaya Arpit Mana Buddhi, one whose mind and intellect is surrendered to me, because mind and intellect are our two biggest assets that God has given us. And if that we surrender to the Lord rather than yearning more and more in this world, then Bhagavan says that person is very dear to me. So in all throughout the Gita Ji, Shri Krishna talks about samatva, balance, equipoise, and samta, balance is the means, because as we go on this journey, we need to understand that in this world where there are a lot of dualities, we need to remain samatva. And finally, the param samatva, the oneness, is the goal that we need to achieve. And samatva, it is very easy to understand and listen, but it's very difficult to practice in our life. And that's why we should try to imbibe these right values in our life to begin with, so that then we can progress towards samatva. In the 13th Adhyaya, where the values of the seekers have been described, Bhagavan starts with amanitvam, most important, because we all have a constant desire to be respected. Somebody doesn't respect us, we feel offended, we feel upset, we feel hatred or dislike towards that person. And this, we should come out from this amanitvam, Bhagavan says, adambitvam, that absence of hypocrisy, dambha, pretense, showing off something that we don't have. When somebody is seeing us, we work in a different way. When somebody is not seeing us, we are different. This kind of dambha, this kind of pretense or hypocrisy is something we should avoid. Ahimsa, non-violence. Non-violence has been talked about in many, many religions. A lot of people have talked about it. Our scriptures say non-violence is not just in actions, even in speech and even in thoughts. We should practice non-violence. Even thinking bad about somebody, speaking rudely to somebody is also hinsa. It's also a violence. Shanti means having a forgiving attitude, being accommodative. Arjavam means simplicity in our thoughts, in our words and actions. Whatever we think, we do, we speak, we do. There is no duplicity, there is no hypocrisy. And Acharya Upasanam, shelter of a guru, remaining pure. Shaucham, outer cleanliness as well as mind cleanliness of the mind. And Stairyam, steadfastness. And Atma Vinigraha means self-control over our body, mind and senses. Indriyartheshu Vairagyam, dispassion from the sense objects. Constantly they want some external pleasures, sense pleasures. But from that, we have to, with understanding, we have to come out and come back. And lack of anahankara, pride, false pride for our own self. Janma mrityu jara vyadi. In birth, death, old age and diseases, we have to see the pain and follies repeatedly, and then only we can understand the reality of this world. Asakti. Asakti means lack of attachment towards people, towards objects. Anavishwangaha, putradara gruhadishu. Lack of too much of affection towards our children, spouse, home, etc. Nityam cha samachit tattvam, and keeping mind in equipoise, in equilibrium, in likes and dislikes. And for the serious seeker who wishes to progress on the spiritual path, Bhagavan says, constantly being connected with me with a one-point devotion, Vivitta Desha Sevitvam, to remain in an isolated place, away from large get-togethers, for that person who is a serious seeker, wants to progress and finally achieve. And finally, Shri Krishna shows the main steps of the final spiritual journey, Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam, pursue the study of the divine knowledge, the self-knowledge on a regular basis by Shravana, that is listening to this Vedanta from the Guru. Manana means internal contemplation, self-introspection, clearing of the doubts, and Nididhyasana means meditation, Vedantic meditation. By this way, Tattva Jnana Artha Darshanam, keeping the knowledge of the self constantly in the mind. And these values, Shri Krishna says, in themselves is the real knowledge in my view, and that is the real divine knowledge. So he gives a lot of importance to this and says everything else is ignorance of the self. Only this Daivi Shakti or Sampatti is the real knowledge. In the 16th Adhyaya, which is devoted completely to Daivi and Asuri Sampatti, Vibhaga Yoga, where the divine and the demonical values are being described, and it is said that life is a combination. Most of us are born with both these values, and in our life, we are a person on what kind of balance we try to achieve within this divine and Asuri and Daivi Sampatti. So Daivi Sampatti are the moral values, which are good values, as we say, ethical values for all persons to think. We need to do a lot of vivek, vichara, and then we have to acquire them. And these are nothing but the Sadgun Sampatti, Sattva Guna Prapti, and that is the part of this knowledge of this journey of our life. Asuri Sampatti are the demonical or the devilish qualities, and we need to discard them. They arise out of the Raja and the Tamaguna, and we need to gradually get out of these and try to acquire Sattva Guna as we progress in life. And attaining Devi Sampatti and discarding Asuri Sampatti is the journey of life, and it is life-changing. And we must make sure that the peace of mind, it's our utmost priority, and make it a top project for ourselves, that we remain peaceful all throughout the day. So 16th Adhyaya, the Daivi Sampatti, in the first 3 shlokas, Bhagavan describes many Daivi Sampatti. Abhayam. Abhayam means absence of fear, all types of fear, because we are all having a lot of fear, and from which we operate insecurities and fear. So we need to have come out of this absence of fear. Sattva Sanshuddhi, purity of our inner mind, is the Daivi Sampatti according to Shri Krishna. Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti, steadiness in this is Jnana, the divine knowledge, and the Yoga. Yoga is the marg. Yoga is the way to achieve this Jnana. So we have to be steady on this path. Dhanam, charity, to try and give as much as we can, to donate something, is a Daivi Sampatti. Dhamma, control over our senses, our sense organs, Indriya Sanyama. It's been talked about in several aspects, in several adhyayas of Bhagavad Gita. Yagna, sacrifice. In today's world, it is the actions done for the larger benefit of the people at large are called yagna. In the Vedic times, there were many yagnas which were done by people. Swadhyaya, study of the scriptures on a regular basis, self-observation or self-introspection. Tapa, willingly endure pain or achieving self-control, something that we do sometimes, doing some kind of a fast or some kind of a tapa is something that we do. Arjavam, simplicity, oneness in our mind and action. Ahimsa, ahimsa is non-violence. Satyam, practicing truth, honesty and integrity with ethical values. Akrodaha, absence of anger. Anger is something that burns not only us, but even the opposite person, and it destroys all our jnana, knowledge, understanding. It makes us crazy, and that's why we should avoid anger. Tyaga, to give up as much as we can with understanding, and that is the tyaga. Generally, we try to hold things or possess things, but here scriptures teach us that we need to let go things, to give up things. Shanti, peace of mind, as our topmost priority. Apaishunam, absence of criticizing attitude. Many of us have this attitude when somebody is not there, we are discussing, we try to criticize the other people. We should avoid this, and that is one of the Daivi Sampatti. Daya, Daya Bhuteshu means having mercy towards all the species, doing something for the other species as well. Alonuptvam, absence of greed. Most of us are generally, we operate out of greed for achieving more and more. And we need to understand that there is something called our needs, and we should try to distinguish this from our greed. And that's how we should learn to, balance ourselves in our life. Mardavam, gentleness in our actions, our speech, our mind, neither being too rude nor being too aggressive, but being gentle. Re means shame. In doing some unethical or illegal things, we should have a shame kind of a thing. If, first or second time, somebody will have a shame in doing something that should not be done. But if they keep doing it again and again, then they'll become shameless and they'll keep repeating the wrong things again and again. Achapalam means absence of restlessness, means remaining calm. And that is something that is a Devi Sampatti according to Shri Krishna. Teja means a radiant or an enlightened personality. Shama, forgiving attitude, forgiving people for their follies, for their shortcomings, rather than criticizing people. Dhruti Shakti is the power to control our rage, to have patience, to control our emotions. That is our Dhruti Shakti. Shaucham means purity of the inner mind and outer purity. Both Adroho, absence of taking a revengeful tendency. If somebody has done something, I'll say, I'll show that person how I'll take revenge. And that revengeful activity is not a good thing. It's Asuri Sampatti. Na ati manita, absence of craving for too much of respect from the other person is something that keeps us always, unhappy. And that's why we should avoid this. We are what we are. Even if somebody or nobody respects us or does not matter to us, we don't change from what we are. And finally, Shri Krishna says, "Oh Arjuna, such are the virtues of the person who are born with this Devi Sampatti, who are, with this divine wealth." And again, in the 16th Adhyaya, Bhagavan says, what is the benefit of this Devi Sampatti? Devi Sampatti Vimokshaya. It is a step towards liberation, towards moksha, whereas Nibandhaya Asuri Mataha. He says, according to my understanding, demonical values or devilish values, Asuri Sampatti, they bind us always and keep us in this world. They don't liberate us from this world. And that's why he says, "Oh Arjuna, you don't worry. You are born with divine qualities. You are born with Devi Sampatti. Every one of us is born with Devi Sampatti, but we have to make sure that we progress or make them stronger and reduce or try to annihilate the Asuri Sampatti as we go ahead in life." So scriptures show us the kind of the lamppost, the traffic signal for our life. When there is a Asuri Sampatti, we should try to stop. It's like a red light. We should try to think whether it's worth doing or not. In the long term, it's not a good thing. And green light is the Devi Sampatti. We should try and think, stop for a moment and think whether what we are doing is the right thing to do. And just as maintaining these traffic rules are important for our safety on the roads, similarly, maintaining some rules of our life, having some kind of ethical values, strong foundation in our life are also important to maintain a dignity and balance and honesty in our life. So to summarize the 16th Adhyaya, the Devi and Asuri Sampatti Vibhaga Yoga, the idea is to leave the Asuri Sampatti and try to imbibe the Devi Sampatti, more go towards the Sattva Guna from the Raja and the Tama Guna. And this Adhyaya is easy to understand but difficult to experience and extremely difficult to put into our practice because it's a constant endeavor for us. There will be lots of failures, but then we have to keep trying our best because our past impressions, our Purva Sanskar are very strongly rooted in us. And that's why sometimes it is very difficult for us to change our old habits. But if we keep trying, repeated practice makes us possible. And we need a constant awareness to change and constant practice. Self-observation and introspection during all these activities are very, very important on a daily basis. And these Devi Sampatti are not for us to judge others, whether others have this Devi Sampatti or not. They're actually, Guruji tells us that this is for our own self, for our own change that these Devi Sampattis are described by Shri Krishna. So coming to the end of this session, I pay my gratitude towards the Lord through whose grace all this is possible. I pray to this Guru Shishya Parampara through which this knowledge is protected, transmitted so as to reach us. I pay my respects to my Guruji, Pujya Guruma, with whose grace I am able to learn the scriptures and share this understanding with you. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parah Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.